My name is Peter Zipp with Zipp Insurance Agency, and I have a Zipp tip for you today. Alright, so my Zipp tip for today, I wanted to talk about homeowners insurance and the actual components of a homeowner's insurance. And there's a lot of stuff in a homeowner's insurance you really need to understand. So first, let's talk about some of the components. So when you buy homeowner's insurance, you buy insurance to cover the house for replacement. You want to make sure it's replacement, not actual cash value. Same with your content, so you have insurance for your content. And then also liability, and you always want to raise the liability above the minimum. It's usually $100,000, and your medical. There's some medical, it's a no fault. You want to raise that. We always raise those, it's just normal from our agency, because we want to protect you. The medical is a great cushion for the liability. We put it at $5,000, so if somebody slips and falls in your house and breaks their arm and they go to the emergency room, it's $3,000. Now you have $5,000 medical, it's easy enough to cover it, so no liability claim. So now let's talk about some of the things in homeowners that are not covered. So under your personal artifacts or your personal property, there are a lot of limitations, and you really need to understand them, and every policy is different from every company. So you really need to look at your limitations under personal property. I would recommend that you do that. So now let's talk about some of the things that aren't covered. So there are some things that are not covered in homeowners that you really need to consult with your homeowner's insurance or your agent. And let's talk about, first one, trampolines. So trampolines could be limited, and the liability could be limited because of the amount of injuries that have resulted. I think I read in 2019, 92,000 emergency room visits just from trampolines. That's a lot of money spent, and I mean from broken legs to broken necks to deaths. Okay, so unfortunately bad things can happen on a trampoline. They're a lot of fun, parents love them, teens love them, but you need to be aware that there could be some limitations on your homeowner's policy. So one thing, first thing we would recommend is that you check with your insurance company or your agent to see if there are any limitations. And one thing I would recommend to protect you, because we know that you're going to buy, your teenagers want them, they're fun. So when the kids come over, if they want to play on the trampoline, have their parents sign a waiver, then you don't have to worry about it. And then the next thing I'd like to talk to you about is there are certain limitations on some policies about dogs. Some policies will limit dogs completely. Some will limit just aggressive breed dogs. So how do you find this out? You get a hold of your agent or your insurance company, and you ask them, make sure you understand. So if you happen to have a dog or one of those aggressive breed dogs, and you know which ones I'm talking about, number one probably is Pit Bull or Rottweiler. So you need to really understand the liability, or if your policy is going to cover it. If you have one of those dogs, move to a company that does not limit those dogs, because if there is a liability, you do not want to pay out of pocket. Next one would be war. Unfortunately, homeowners has never addressed an act of war, and that includes any kind of terrorism. So the thing that happened in Vegas 2 years ago, that was an act of war. If that happened in Phoenix and your house actually got destroyed, unfortunately, there would be no coverage. Let's just hope that never happens. I'm in the same boat. I own a home here too. Flood is not covered. FEMA controls that pretty much. Congress sets the laws, and everybody's in a risk, some kind of risk zone. Most of Phoenix is in a moderate risk zones. You're not required to have it based on your mortgage. If you were in a high risk zone, you would get a letter saying that you're required to have it because your mortgage company is requiring it. You would know that if you were in one of those zones. However, if groundwater enters the house, that is flood. Don't think of flood if the house gets flooded from a tub overflowing or a toilet overflowing because it broke, something happened. That is covered under your homeowners. If we're talking of flooding, groundwater entering the house, that's flood. And then the last thing I wanted to bring up real quick, which we don't have a lot in the valley happen, but earthquakes. It does happen. It has happened in Arizona. Flagstaff has had some pretty big earthquakes. Actually, I believe Humphreys Peak, 3,000 feet of that mountain blew off from an earthquake. So that's a pretty powerful earthquake. I don't know if it will ever happen again in Arizona. we don't know, but you just need to be aware that earthquake is not covered under homeowners. So, any questions, reach out to Peter with Zipp Insurance Agency at peterknowsinsurance.com.